It's Powerback time on the Gutsy Podcast, your 20-minute boost to reclaim and refocus your energy. Get ready to have bursts of clarity, a boost of confidence, and the practical steps you need to make gutsy moves forward. You've got big things to do, so let's get your power back. If you've got a list of things to do, goals or aspirations that have been floating around, or just things that you've been hoping to accomplish, but you can't seem to get started or keep the momentum, then today's Powerback episode is for you. Today, we're going to focus on defining what your focus goal is, simplifying your steps, and then creating a plan so that you can get it done. Because when you're in this space of, I have all these things that I want to do, but I don't even know where to start, the tendency is to stop, to shut down, to scroll, basically to do anything other than working towards the thing that you actually want. So if you don't know where to start, congratulations, you've started by joining here today. Before we dig in, I've started this new call-in radio-esque style thing on Zoom once every couple of months. And this is a free opportunity for you to sign up and to come into a Zoom space and to get your questions answered. Think of it like hot seat coaching call-in style. So whether you are enjoying the podcast and would love to do a live interaction with me, or you've been kind of teetering on doing some coaching or maybe even joining the Gutsy Collective, this is a great way to kind of test run to see if this is for you. The next Live with LA session is on November 7th, so go to LauraAura.com and click on the banner at the top, or you can scroll down and click on the show notes and register today. All right, my friend, let's dig into this topic of I have things that I want to do, but I don't even know where to begin. First, I just want to humanize and normalize that more people feel like this than not. So there's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. There isn't something like fundamentally off that we have to fix. What usually ends up happening is, let's not forget that you have other things going on in your life, right? And especially depending on what stage in your life, if you've got young kiddos at home, that adds in a factor. If you are in the middle years of life, there's often some transition happening. If you're in the older years of life, maybe you've got some parents that you're caring for. We're also building careers, and we've got home lives, and we've got spouses, and like, you got a lot of shit going on. And sometimes there's this expectation that you should have it all figured out, and you should be able to handle it, and you should be able to do it all by yourself. Well, my lovely friend, that intense independence is not really helping you. And that expectation of should is actually one of the things that's feeding you from not being able to move forward. It's feeding the why you can't versus feeding the why you can. So today I want to focus on feeding the why you can. Being able to take back control, to be able to get back into your body, to be able to move forward. Listen, it's not that you're lacking ideas. It's not that you don't know what you want, right? You might still be tinkering it. It might not be crystal clear, but there's a direction, right? There's a North Star. There's a focal point. This particular conversation is not around lack. It's about there's just too much and it's fucking freaking me out and it's overwhelming and I don't know where to start. So therefore I shut down. The bigness of it, the details, where to begin, what's the first thing to do. You're wanting to move forward, but how do you when everything seems like it's got equal importance? The brain's tendency then is to say, oh, this is not what we normally do. This is overwhelming. I'm going to shut down. And when you shut down, then you're feeding the part of your brain that believes that I can't do this and I don't know what I'm doing and I'm too late. It stops you from making progress. And then the voice in your head pops in and tells you all this crap that we logically know isn't true, but when you're in that moment, it feels very true. And the thing about this particular topic too is there isn't like a perfect framework. There are so many different variables that you have got to keep in mind, and having empathy with yourself and also knowing that it's okay to ask for help, especially if this is something new, especially if this is something that's unfamiliar to you. Asking for help or guidance or support is a sign of strength, not of weakness. But then you're probably thinking, okay, Laura, I can do that, but I don't even know what to ask for help for. Okay, let's get into the nitty gritty then, okay? Let's get clear on your focus. Let's simplify the shit out of it and let's get a plan so you can actually get this thing done, okay? Before I go there though, there are a few things that we need to acknowledge together. Okay. These are some real ass moments. This is the check yourself before you wreck yourself kind of stuff. First, I want you to be very honest and vulnerable with yourself. You don't have to share this with anybody unless you feel compelled to. But I want you to ask, am I taking on too many things? Am I trying to change too much at once? Have I set an expectation that's above and beyond what's actually really tangible right now? Like I mentioned earlier, you could be in any or all of these different phases of life, looking at your family calendar, looking at your social responsibilities, like what's going on around you right now. We have to be very realistic about these things. And sometimes wonderful women like you believe that you are a superhuman. And I'm not saying that you're not. Listen, I'm just saying that you don't have to save the world every day. I'm telling you that taking on too many things, regardless, tends to set you up for failure, tends to set you up for dropping the ball, for not being able to achieve things. And then guess what plays over again? See, I can't do it. This is why we can't have nice things, right? Like it plays this crap all over in your head. And so I want you to take a real life inventory of your list, of your expectations, of the things that you're changing, the thing that you're working towards, and acknowledge, am I taking on too many things right now in this season? I know you want to do all the things, and I'm not saying that you can't or that you won't. I'm just saying that, can we be a little bit more realistic about what's possible right now? The second thing is to consider how much perfectionism is trying to come into this. And I'm even going to tag team in here control. Perfectionism and control tend to go hand in hand. They're like best friends that like to skip down the yellow brick road. Except they don't often lead you to the Emerald City. They lead you to that fucking woods where all those monkeys come flying out at you. Perfectionism and control is like this narrator telling you that things have to go a certain way and that you can't move forward without it. Whereas progress is saying, hey, we have an idea, we have a standard, we have a focus, but we understand that things might go a little bit differently as we're doing and building. So what part of this process are you trying to control? Where do you have the death grip around this thing? That control is like putting a blanket on a fire, right? It's smothering it. It's going to put it out. And I'm talking like one of those fire safe blankets, right? The ones that are intended to. If you get really real with yourself and say, okay, this is where I'm trying to control this. This is where I'm expecting things to be perfect or that things have to go a certain way. When you can acknowledge that and say, okay, I'm willing to loosen the grip a little bit. I'm not saying that we have to throw our hands up in the air. I'm just saying that we are no longer like gripping it together. And the third piece is understanding what your tendencies are. When I am overwhelmed, I tend to shut down and scroll on my phone. When I am excited, I tend to overcommit and take on too many things. When I am worried, I tend to jump in and do too many things at once and then end up making a bigger mess. Start to notice what your tendencies are. When you're feeling a heightened sense of something, what do you tend to do? What is the behavior that tends to come along with that emotion? Because if you can acknowledge what your tendencies are, you can see them in real time. And I promise once you see them, you can't unsee them. And that's a really great thing because knowledge is power and power gives you the ability to change. So I can say for me, when I'm overwhelmed, I tend to shut down and I stop doing things and I scroll on my phone. I'm now at the point where I can catch the overwhelm even before the tendency pops in. It's not 100%. I'm not perfect at it, but I've practiced it enough that I can notice when I'm getting overwhelmed and I can shift there. And you can and you will work towards that. What I'm asking you to do is notice when you're feeling that feeling and then what is the behavior that immediately wants to follow it. Notice when you start to do that thing or go to do that thing. So for instance, when I'm sitting at my computer, I've got too many tabs open, my email's dinging, my phone's vibrating, and I've got shit all over my desk. You know that I'm over. That's a visual representation that Laura is in overwhelm. My tendency is to ignore all that for a minute, grab my phone, and go to TikTok. It's like my brain wants to escape all of these things. And while I think my brain intended on that for it to be a reset, instead, it gravitated towards that as a way to fix it. And so I'll grab it And instead of scrolling for 5 minutes, I realize that I've now been on TikTok for 35 minutes, and I look up and I'm like, oh my God, now the time has gone by and I have another meeting coming up and I didn't do this damn thing that I needed to do. This is why catching your tendencies, understanding your tendencies, and then being able to catch them is so essential, because this is information. This is your opportunity to be able to say, okay, here's what I want to do. Here's what I would typically go towards, but I have a focal point and I know what to do instead. My instead is to get up, is to move. Instead of grabbing my phone, I'm going to stand up. And that might be to go to the bathroom. That might be to go stand outside. It might be to, go refresh my water, or take a quick walk around the block, or go check the mail. Like, it might be something very subtle, but it interrupts the pattern. So I'm not feeding that overwhelm and that shutdown. These are a few things that I want you to keep in mind as you are looking at the subject and working towards moving, getting this thing done, or at least getting it started. Listen, I can teach you how to create a plan all day long, but if we don't focus on and hone in on some of the fundamental mind things that are happening, you'll end up repeating the same thing in a different scenario. So now that we've got that covered, let's get into getting you some clarity, okay? Because I want you to be able to get this thing started. Let's get moving. There are 3 ways for you to be able to do that. So first and foremost, let's define your focus. What is it that you want to do? What is the thing that you want to accomplish? What is the thing that you want to prioritize? Because again, I know it's likely not one thing that you're trying to do. You're trying to do many of things. And that goes back to the conversation earlier. Remember, talking about taking on too many things. Listen, if everything on your list is a priority, like everything has to get done, there is no magic wand or special formula. What I'm going to tell you is pick one and go. It's all eventually got to get done. Like, if there's literally no priority, if there isn't one that's heavier than other, if there isn't one that has a deadline that's sooner than the other, or something that has to happen before something else, if it's all equal playing field, pick one and go. Stop overthinking it. Stop overanalyzing it. You just need movement, my friend. You need a choice and you need movement. Now, on the flip side, let's say there is one thing. There is something that has to happen before another. There is a priority. There is something that's weighing heavier on you. There is something that's more important or more exciting for you. Then let's focus on that one thing. It's not that you can't do other things. It's that this is the priority. This is the one that you are going to put the most effort into. This is the one that you are dedicating to say, I'm ready to do this. I'm going to do this. Let's go. When you pick a focus, you have direction. And when you have direction, you can go that way. You can take steps towards it. The lack of commitment, the lack of clarity, the lack of focus causes a shitstorm in the brain. So let's choose, what is your one thing that you're going to prioritize and focus on right now? This is really, really important, okay? So if you need to pause this and come back, that's okay. If you need to reflect and come back, that's okay. If you want to listen to this the rest of the way through and get your brain juices going, that's okay too. I'm just saying that this is the priority piece, because otherwise you end up doing a whole bunch of things and getting nowhere and feeling unfulfilled. And you want to talk about what burns you out and uninspires you and unmotivates you, keep doing that. But if you want to feel like you've gotten somewhere, like you are following through, like you are achieving something, you're making something happen, my friend, pick something. Pick one thing that you want to prioritize and focus on. Because now we can go on to the second piece, which is, let's simplify your steps. Let's simplify this. Like I mentioned earlier, the bigness, the details, the where do I start? Where do I begin? Everything's on fire. I don't even know what to do. Okay, this is where this next step comes in. Something that actually carries a lot more weight than what we realize is trying to remember everything. So you get these ideas, you have these things that you need to do, like, oh shit, I didn't even think of that. Like, I need to do that tomorrow, right? You're trying to hold all this stuff, and your brain is like a sponge. It can only hold on to so much at one given moment before it just starts to spill over. And there's this unconscious fear that I'm going to forget something. I'm going to forget what I need to do. I'm going to forget this idea that I have. And it adds to that overwhelm, which leads to the shutdown. So instead, let's brain dump it. Listen, this stuff is so stupid simple, but it works. If you're not already doing it, it works. Brain dump it. Get it out. Get it on a notepad. Get it on a piece of paper. Have something that's organized. Have sticky notes and put them all over your wall. Have a notebook that you keep in your purse as you're going about your day. When you get an idea or an aha moment or an oh shit, like I also need to do this type of thing, get it down on paper. Because when you get it on paper, you don't have to remember it anymore. It's secured somewhere, which gives your brain capacity to receive more information, to give you the right ideas, to help you be more present, to be able to be in the line at Starbucks and you get an idea and you jot it down. Even if it's in the notes section of your phone, you should see mine. It's like the Wild fucking West. But I get it down and I'm like, oh, okay, I got that. I've secured it. And then I look up and like, there's somebody that I haven't seen in a long time. And we start having a conversation and it leads to something that supports this thing, right? Like that's the opportunity that comes when you have capacity versus if you're stressed out, you're trying to worry about it, you're cramming all this stuff in and it's like you have blinders on. You can't see past your nose because you're so wrapped up in your mind. Brain dumping, I'm telling you, get it documented. It is an absolute game changer. And then the next thing that you can do with this is to give it some order, to give it a little bit of form. Okay, now we've got all this stuff out and down. It might look messy and that's fine. Now you can do something that I like to do is like grouping things together. Are there like tasks? Are there similar things that I can pull together that I might be able to do together? Different phone calls, lump them together, different types of communication. I mean, that could be a bucket of its own, communication. So I needed to make these 3 phone calls and send these 2 emails. Okay, that's all communication. I can get in one zone and do all that together. Maybe there's some research. There's some things that I need to figure out. I need to figure out how to register the LLC. I need to figure out how to open a 501c3. I need to figure out how to open a shop. I need to figure out how to start sewing, right? Like whatever information I need to gather, can we lump all of those tasks together? The goal here is to get in a similar frame of mind to do similar tasks. Instead of ping-ponging back and forth, we want to get in a zone, right? Get into a path. This makes doing easier, more efficient, and substantially more enjoyable. Even the things that you don't want to do, right? Because with every goal and aspiration, there's always a few pieces where you're like dragging your ass. You don't really want to do it. If you lump it all together, you put on a good soundtrack and you just get in and get it done. It's so much easier when you just pull those like tasks together. And also because you have everything written down in a place or have pulled these pieces together, you can also look at, are there any I have to do this first items? These are things that have to happen in an order of operation. So if you're going to be changing your job, you have to update your resume before you can update your stuff on Indeed. If you're getting ready to list your house and move across the country, you have to clean up the space and declutter things in order to get the right photos to get onto the listing. If you're starting a new flower shop, you have to register your LLC or your incorporation before you can sign a lease. Right? These are order of operation, things that have to happen first before something else can happen. So go through your list and identify, are there any items that have to be done first or before something else? Give it a star, give it a 1, 2, 3, give it some acknowledgement, because guess what we just found, my friend? We just found where to start. And if there is no particular order of operation, that's okay. Because the last thing that we're going to do is to create a plan. This is technically, definitely, and absolutely figuring out, where do I begin? I've got my focus. I know what I'm working on and towards. All those floundering ideas and passing thoughts that I've had are now down on a piece of paper. So let's create a plan. Where do I start? How do I move forward? First is let's set realistic expectations. Is the goal to remodel your house and your expectation is that you're going to have it all, your entire house, every room done in the next 30 days? Okay, listen, that is not setting you up for success. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. But could you finish one room in the next 30 days? Quite possibly. This is a great time to even hone in and reevaluate and tighten up your primary focus, because you might get here and realize like, oh yeah, you know what? This is a heavy season for us. We've got a lot going on right now, and trying to take this big thing on right now is probably not a great idea. But there's a piece of it that could be, or there's this other thing that I've been wanting to work on and towards. Maybe that's a better option right now. What's going to set you up for success? What is realistic? And a few ways to implement, to really be able to hone in and take action on this is to schedule in time. Again, they feel like basic things like, Laura, this can't possibly work. This is too simple. I'm telling you, if it's in your calendar, if there's intentional time chosen for it, you are more likely to achieve it or work on it. So time blocking it. How many hours a day can you work on it? How many days a week can you work on it? How many hours a week can you work on it? Again, be realistic. Set expectations that are true and valid for you. Is there anything on that list that can be delegated? Asking for help. Seeing if there's somebody in your world that's maybe better at this or has an expertise that could guide you on something. And let's focus on what can you do next? Is there an order of operation that you can focus on? And if not, what's one thing that you can start with? It's not about it being perfect. It's not about it all happening overnight. It's about getting clear, getting focused, and taking action. Making any kind of change comes with its own set of obstacles, and it also comes with its own set of opportunities. Letting go of the perfectionism, releasing your need to control the entire situation, and staying open and fluid with it is going to help you achieve it so much faster. And if nothing else stuck from this episode today, all you need to remember is to pick one thing. What is the one thing that you want to focus on? What is the one next step that you can take towards it? That's it. When you move, you create momentum. When you create momentum, you get clarity. When you get clarity, you get confidence, and it just grows from there. Focus and action are the name of the game. Okay? By the way, these are conversations that we have inside the Gutsy Collective. Literally, women are working on and towards something when they get stumped, when they're not sure what to do, when they need a little bit of insight outside of themselves. There is a discussion space and live Q&A sessions where you have the opportunity to ask the questions that you're sitting there overthinking. So if you're making some kind of movement and you could use some accountability and some people outside of your head that get it, the Gutsy Collective is a game changer for achieving your goals and feeling good about it. The first 2 weeks are free to join. Go to LauraAura.com/Gutsy Collective, and we'll see you on the inside. I hope today has given you a little bit of a boost and a lot of clarity so that you not only know what you're working on and towards, but so that now you know where to start. I'd love to hear what your one next thing is. So reach out to me on Facebook, TikTok, or Instagram. I am at that LauraAura. And as always, until I see you next time, stay gutsy.